Okay, so one of my good friends that I go photograph with, Dusty Doddridge, we go
What a
to the
cool
Smokies a
name,
lot.
man. Hang on.
Isn't it?
What
Isn't
a
it?
cool name.
I'm
Wow.
telling you. And
Yeah.
look, what's his friend's name? His friend's name is like Rusty Bridges or something.
I don't know who you are, but welcome to the Irish Photography Podcast. Sit back, relax, and listen about cameras, gear, settings, stories, and all things photography. Join Darren on Ireland's Best Photography Podcast. Let's go.
And you're very welcome to episode 135 of the Irish Photography Podcast. My name is Darren. I'm your host this evening, and I'm joined by somebody who is not somebody who hasn't been on podcasts many, many times before. In fact, he's got his very own podcast, and he's quite accomplished at it as well. So welcome to the Irish Photography Podcast, David Johnston. How are you getting on, buddy?
Hey, Darren, thanks so much for having me on. It's always fun being on other people's podcasts and being on the other side of the mic for a change.
Yeah, for sure. It's a much easier life anyway, I'm told. But yeah, I enjoy kind of hosting, and I'm sure you enjoy hosting quite a lot too, because I've listened to a lot of your podcasts, and you are quite good at it, to be fair. So that's a good start, I think.
I really appreciate that, man. Yeah. It's being on this side, it's a little, I think it's more stressful, honestly, because like, where is this going? Maybe it goes one direction, maybe you spin it in another direction. At least when I'm on your side of things, I have control over what's going to be asked.
Yeah, very, very true. Very true. I've only got a couple of scary questions, which I'll throw in there unbeknownst with you. But we'll be fine. I'm sure we'll be fine. So, good afternoon anyway to you. It's evening for me here in Ireland, but you're in the US. And I suppose, what time is it there at the moment?
Yes, sir. It is 3:29 p.m.
3:29 p.m. Okay, so it's 9:29 p.m. here. So we'll be done by 2 a.m. my time, I'd say. So
Perfect.
7 p.m. your time. Yeah, that'll be fine. Yeah.
Perfect timing.
And I suppose, David, just so we start off, in case anybody doesn't know who you are, can you give us a brief kind of overview? Who is David Johnston?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm from Tennessee. I just love photography. What's interesting about my journey in photography, and I'm sure we'll get into it in the following questions, but it's been very tumultuous. It's taken a lot of twists and turns, and I'm thankful for all of them. But I'm a Tennessee photographer. I dabble in landscapes primarily. Really been shooting a lot of macro, like ethereal, dreamy kind of stuff lately.
Nice.
And it's just, being a photographer in Tennessee, you don't get the same community, I feel like, you do as when you're out west in the United States and you have that, giant population of photographers who shoot out west, whether California, Oregon, Washington, or Utah. But we still have a lot of really fun places that you can get into, and the crowds are pretty sparse besides the Smoky Mountains in East Tennessee.
Interesting. Yeah, because, I'm, as you know, from Ireland, and I'm used to being close to the coast. But I mean, how far away is the coast from your point of view in regards to that?
I think the closest coast I can get to is about 7 hours from me.
Wow.
And that's, on the coast of Ireland, you're getting those dynamic weather waves that come in and craggy coastlines. And the closest beach I can get to is like smooth white sand beaches, zero waves whatsoever. And it's like completely opposite.
Well, you know what? You have the Smoky Mountains. I mean, they're real mountains. In Ireland, we say we've got mountains, but most people look at them and say they're just hills. But, I mean, real mountains are something, I think, which is in itself its own ecosystem or its own microclimate, because you will have hot and cold weather there, which will create some incredible conditions as well, and lots of mood and lots of atmosphere. So, yeah, as much as I love the sea, I think, close to the Smoky Mountains, I think you'll get equally dynamic light anyway, for sure.
Yeah. And the mountains themselves kind of create their own weather. Like you said, the weather changes, the hot and the cold, when they mix, they're called the Smoky Mountains for a reason. So you get incredible fog that runs through the trees and the valleys and down in the waterfall areas. So it is a very dynamic area with old growth forests up top and mountain streams down at the bottom, and valleys. Like right now in the spring, spring blossoms are exploding. So it's a great time.
Nice. And tell me, when did you get started in photography? Was it early in your life? Was it later in your life? Tell us the story of that. When did it bite you? When did the bug bite you?
It's really funny. I started in high school when I was about 17, and I took a film photography class in high school because I wanted to get out. I found this loophole in the rules in high school that I could get out of a geography course if I took a creative arts course. So
Brilliant.
I signed up for film photography and did that course thinking it would be an easy A. I'm pretty sure I made a C in the course because film is, if anyone who's listening who knows, film is much harder than it seems.
True story.
Being somebody who had no idea about like the exposure triangle or how a camera worked or how to, we had our own dark room, so we would go in and expose our own prints, and
Nice.
it was really hard, and I messed up a whole lot. And the irony of it all is that I majored in geography in college, so that course in high school really would have come in handy. But I majored in geography because I loved being outside. I loved hiking. I loved exploring the infield labs that we would do in geography. I was always the one at the very back holding up the entire group, I'm with my little point and shoot camera at the time, trying to compose something that was different than what I was seeing than everybody else was taking photos of. And it didn't really click with me that that's what I should be doing. And I got a desk job with a city government that I just, couldn't take any longer. And I worked on my first podcast for about 5 years before I jumped over to trying photography full time. And really, things got kicked off for me when I got my first digital camera in 2010, and just exploring with that on the same beaches that I was talking about with you earlier, exploring the light and the sunrise and compositions out there. And I had one of those mornings where you're just in the creative flow and everything kind of just comes together and it's effortless. And I thought I could really do this full time if I could make it work. And hating my job so much, I really went for it full force with the support, the great support from my partner, my wife, and she really encouraged me. I almost quit several times along the way, I'll be honest with you. And she was like, you know what you're doing, keep at it. Work it on the side for a while, and then you can make the jump. And when I finally did, all the credits to her, because she kept me in that healthy mindset of doing that. And jumping to full time was hard at first. I didn't make any money for the first 6 months, and we had kind of a fallback account for that situation. And I finally kind of figured out what set me apart and how I was a little bit different.
That's quite interesting, I suppose. And a couple of things just to expand on that is, to have the support network and to have your wife who has your back. That is really, really important as well, because if you don't have that, you're always kind of second guessing the decision. But she's helping you and encouraging you to kind of push on. And you're saying that you had wanted to quit a couple of times, but she probably was the one who said, no, stick with it. And I think that's really, really important, because without it, are you in a different situation from a mindset point of view as well,
Yeah, totally. And it all comes down to communication, letting each other know what you want, like what are your goals for, this year, 5 years down the road. Obviously, stuff can come up like the pandemic, and we can get, quarantined to, what did you say, 5
kilometers in Ireland, yeah.
Yeah. So things can come up like that and set you back. But when you have each other's back like that, and I know what her goals were, and we worked to do those as well, and make those a reality. It's really encouraging. You know, I'll be honest with you, Darren, I haven't told anybody else this. There were a few months ago when I came to my wife and I said, I don't know if I can do this anymore. Maybe I should just get a like consistently paying job where I have like a check coming in the mail or a direct deposit. And maybe that would be a lot more healthy for our family. And she said, I love that you love what you do, and I love our lifestyle, and I'm willing to give up that security to see you happy. And we really had this good communication and coming together of like reframing what the goals were and kind of bringing me back to the ground, if you know what I mean.
100%. And I think that's really important as well, because if you decided to kind of jack it in and go back to the desk job, she probably knows you and so well, better than yourself, that you wouldn't even be happy doing that, and that you'd be longing to go back to what you're passionate about. And, you know, I remember a couple of weeks back when I was talking with Mark Denny, he said a statement to me, which was, you know, find a job you love. You never have to work another day in your life. And he always thought that was a pipe dream, but he got an opportunity to try and live it. And then very quickly he went, you know what, actually, this could be that pipe dream. Because yes, financial side things aside, if you enjoy what you're doing, you actually are better in your output as opposed to not enjoying what you're doing. And then you're effectively on the mill. You're going around and around for the sake of that paycheck every single week or every single month. So passion, I think, is something which you can't really teach. You either have a passion for something or you have a draw for something. And if you have that and you're good at it, then I think your wife is right to say, no, keep going, you know. So that's really, really important. And it's encouraging as well to hear another person say a similar thing to that, that, you know, your partner has your back, because without that, you are in a different playing field. So yeah, that's really, really good to kind of hear. So I think, you know, with that in mind, really, I suppose, David, you alluded to it then, the second point coming from when you were in college. So you did film, and I'm sure you were the guy out in the geography, you know, walks that was taking the pictures, as you say, of everything. So you've tried all different styles of photography. Is there any style of photography that you haven't tried? And then is there a favorite of what you have tried?
I will add, I think my wife said those things for her own sanity too, because she, like you said, she knows I'd be going crazy. So for her own says my back. Have I tried? Is there anything I haven't tried? Let's see. I haven't tried too much of like the really abstract stuff.
Okay.
Black and whites is something that I haven't done a ton of, but I have tried them. You know, anything outdoors for me is kind of my bread and butter. And I think having a lot of people on the podcast and talking to a lot of photographers over the years, and with like the birth of social media and following that when it first started, the thing I loved most about exploring was seeing other people's work and thinking like, how did they do that? And then trying to figure out on my own. And I wouldn't necessarily look up how to do it. Maybe like night photography might be a little bit different when there's so many parameters you have to know before you go out. But like macro photography, for example, or waterfall photography, forest photography, I tried to figure that out on my own, and it forced me to go out a lot. The only things I really haven't tried in photography are like portraits, weddings. I did one wedding and I said, this is the last one I'll ever do. And then just like random stuff, you know, I'll just go walking in the woods and come across something that catches my eye and think, you know, I really haven't done this very much. If we travel, I'll do a lot of street photography just for fun, architecture photography. So I think doing a lot of photography helps you in your main niche of like landscapes for me, because, okay, if I frame up these buildings in architecture photography, if I'm traveling, maybe that emulates some mountains later on down the road if I'm out west, or maybe that helps me figure out like shooting through a natural window in forest photography or something like that. So it all kind of weaves in and out of one another and comes together in a really unique way.
Very interesting, because similar to, you know, you and me, I think I couldn't do a wedding. There's no way. I've said it many, many times in the podcast. I could not do it. My kids, by the time a moment comes and goes, I haven't got the camera out. I haven't got the right lens on. I haven't got the flash on. I just take out my phone. I take the photograph with the phone because it's a candid moment. You want to get it quick. And it's always been something that I've always said, you know what, I want to learn it. I want to be better at it. I want to be able to know that I can get the camera. Okay, it won't be instantaneous like the phone out of the pocket, but at least when I have the opportunity, I'll know to take the shot. I now know how to take the shot, but do I do it? No, I don't, because it's just purely don't. My kids are young, so it's hard enough for them to keep still, never mind say pose for a photograph or anything like that. So exactly that. I mean, you know, the landscape is something that really attracts me, but I love what you say there about, you know, trying different styles of photography and having the camera with you and picking something out when you walk in the woods that you wouldn't necessarily pick out, because it's another skill. It adds another skill, and it adds another ability as well that you can draw on if you ever needed it. When it comes to a different time of the year or a different spot, you've done something before. So you're not fumbling around trying to, oh, sugar, how am I going to do this? You know what you're doing because you've done it in your pastime, let's just say. But when the moment arrives, then, boom, you know what you need to do. And I think one thing that you mentioned here, which is astrophotography, because astrophotography seems extremely complicated, and it is very complicated, but when you nail it, it's not that complicated because you just got to make sure you know the settings, what you got to do, how you're going to get your focus, which is the biggest one. But it is another opportunity then, because once you've practiced on something, then you can go out and you can say, okay, I know what to shoot the night sky. Now what I need is something in front of it from a foreground point of view. And then it presents another challenge, which is, okay, I'm doing my 25-second exposure. Okay, well, now my foreground is dark. How do I do something? So then you have to learn more things about that. So every time we use the camera, do you think we get innately better and more comfortable and the muscle memory builds up and every time we use the camera?
In a way, I think for technique, yes. And like kind of the example that you were throwing out, night sky photography, if you're shooting the Milky Way, once you have those settings down, you have them down. Once you figure out the foreground element and that long exposure, like a 2.5 minute exposure to naturally light the foreground, you have that down. And star trails too are the same thing. I love shooting star trails, and people always ask me, you know, how do you do that? That seems so complicated. I'm like, really? You just set up one shot and set up your intervalometer and you sit there for the next hour and a half, and that's pretty much it. But I think creatively, it ebbs and flows. You get better in your own creative expression as a photographer, and sometimes you kind of take a step back, and maybe that stems from life events that you're going through. Maybe that stems from you are rushed at the time of going out and taking a photograph. So technically, I do think you learn something and you get a little bit better each and every time. Creatively, it's this up and down checkpoint style of exploring who you are as a photographer and exploring your own expression through your images.
Absolutely. And I think one other area that comes to mind then from all of that is when you practice, you get better. But you will not get better unless you make mistakes. And it's okay to make mistakes, you know, but like this is the point I think that a lot of people, it generally can be the last part that people learn in their photography journey, because you can learn about the settings, you can learn about the camera, you can learn about light, but it's composition. And composition is something which is very powerful in an image. Light is really, really important, 100%. But you could have beautiful light and a bad composition, or you could have a great composition and poor light. You know that the one is going to be better that has the better composition, because it's going to bring you through the image. And I think that's something that generally comes with practice, but also comes with making mistakes. And I think, you know, we shouldn't be afraid of making mistakes because it's part of the journey. And the more we use the camera, then ultimately I think the better that we can get for the times when we need to get back out. And that's the thing I wanted to ask you, I suppose, you know, when the areas that you would go shooting on, have you a favorite time of the year when you'd like to go back to locations that you found? So like, do you do many recce journeys and go, okay, this will be great for fall, this will be great for winter, this will be great for spring? Like, is there a favorite season that you've kind of drawn to over the years based on all of that experimenting with the camera and different things in different areas over the years previous?
Definitely. I think at this point, we're all like, I'll go out and shoot any time of the year. We just want to get out. But if I'm out scouting in a location like summer and winter, I really don't shoot all that much. And I'll go out to new locations and try to figure out different compositions for, like you said, spring and fall. But spring for me, like right now, the rejuvenation of all the plants, all the trees budding out, like the dogwoods, the fire thorns around us are just exploding in color. And it's just like this good feeling. It's warm again. The grass is growing, so everything's a little bit greener. I love that season of photography and also season of the year. Fall is a little bit, I think spring is a little bit more predictable for me where I live, because you can kind of say, okay, from this point in April to this point, it's going to be a banger shot. Like this tree is going to blossom out and you're going to nail it. In terms of fall, with changing weather patterns, especially year to year, but I've started to notice in our area and where I live in West Tennessee, we're getting really wet mid-summers, but really dry late summers. So what happens in that is it kind of throws off the fall color season for me in a guessing game of, are we going to have one cold snap and a storm that blows through with straight line winds and just knocks everything? Or are we going to have like a week of where it's a marathon of shooting, and by the end of the week, you're just dead tired? So for me, it's spring, and then fall comes in at a close second, but that's just because fall is like a helter-skelter, fly by the seat of my pants, figure out what to do in the field and go for it.
Yeah, and I think with that in mind too, as you say, like spring is more gradual. Fall can be, well, we call it autumn here, I'm calling it fall, obviously, because you call it fall.
Sure.
Right? But that could be something which is there, as you say, can be, oh my God, this is going to be incredible. And then it just takes that cold snap and a wind and it's gone. And other years, it can last for a longer period of time as well. You can get, the start of fall colors, you get the peak of fall colors, and then it takes a long while as well for all those leaves to disappear. So you get the full story of fall as well. But I think spring is, as you say, and I like that idea, is that it's more predictable because there's not much going to happen to knock the new buds off the trees, but it's actually a very, very unique color green. It's a very light color green. And it's something I think that, a lot of people look over because it's not there yet. There's only a small bit here and such like that. But you started as well now to do some macro in spring. And you're really kind of honing in on that too, to be able to look at those budding flowers. And as you say, there's a bloom of color. Is that something that you've done before now, or you just started to kind of look at that differently at this point in time?
I think I noticed it when I was doing the grander landscapes, and shooting spring in East Tennessee really brings this to mind of noticing that the trees were turning, like that neon green that you get sometimes, especially when they're backlit with like some foggy conditions. I mean, that is like my kind of light right there. And then you have some of these trees that are just like beginning to bud out and they're a little bit red, and over here they're purple, and then you have a dogwood that's white, and it's just all meshes together into this beautiful like tapestry of color. But I never noticed it in a sense of doing the smaller scenes, like the macro photography, until I got a lens baby lens, a velvet lens this past year to try out. And I started doing it last spring when all those greens were coming out, and there were a lot of ferns budding and having those like twisted and swirled fern fronds that start to come out in the spring. I mean, I would spend days photographing those and trying to get it just right. And this spring I've moved towards those budding trees, the flowering trees. And just the other day I was down by a random parking lot in a veterinary clinic just down the road, and there was this amazingly beautiful tree. And I probably spent an hour photographing it, and it felt like 5 minutes had gone by. And, with stuff like that, it's just a mental break. It's 5 minutes down the road, and it's just fun to try something new. And that velvet lens, what I love so much about it is it gives you the focus and where you want it, like a macro lens would, but it puts such a soft edge on it. It puts like an ethereal, dreamy look to it without going to like something you could do in Photoshop to get that same effect. I love the out of camera look that it gives to a lot of my macro stuff that I've been doing in the past year.
Yeah, it's actually very, very nice. And, as you say, exactly that. It's a very good description you've given of the images as well, because it is an ethereal look, but it looks like beautiful bokeh. And you're going, oh, yeah, this is lovely. But the point that you're looking at as well here is the most important point, which is the focal point of the image. So everything else becomes incidental because that's what you want to look at. But the rest isn't incidental because it's actually complementing what you're mainly looking at, because it's now helping you to frame that as well. So, yeah, I've really, really enjoyed those images that you've been posting recently on those. And I can see when you say there, 5 minutes is what you thought. And then you say, okay, Jesus, an hour has passed. Does it remind you of your college days, when you say you're kicking up the group behind you and you're taking, give me 5 minutes, guys. And you're hang on, David, we're 30 minutes here waiting for you to kind of take this shot. So it's probably a bit of history repeating itself there as well, I think, on that one.
I hadn't thought of that before, but I think you're exactly right. And that's, it's funny, we move with new techniques or new thoughts or ideas in photography. We move in that cyclical pattern. We come back to where we started, and just like trying to figure it all out. Like I was talking about just a little while ago, trying to figure out, okay, why does this ethereal scene look different than the other one? Why do I like this background better? What can I do to get a perspective on it where it looks like the edge of the flower is just like coming out of nowhere, but then it hits in focus in just the right spot. And, I think I hadn't thought of that before, but now, I think you're right.
It's all stemmed from the college days. Yeah. And actually, what? So, speaking of the college days, to kind of digress slightly, sports seems to have played a lot and a big part in your life. I think that comes from the college days as well, I think. Yeah. So you were into basketball, football, snowboarding as well, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah. Snowboarding was really fun. I went to the University of Tennessee. My parents probably went nuts because it was the only college I applied to because I love their football team. And that's the only reason I wanted to go. So I went there. I didn't play football, but I went there to watch football and get a degree along the way. But, I still follow them all the time. And I played basketball. Like I was one of those kids that like understood the game, but I'm 6'5", and at that point I was pretty squirrely coordination wise. So I couldn't really hang with the school team. I was always like that last person cut at tryouts.
Okay.
So I would play like a lot of the intramural sports, and when you're that tall and gangly, you have to be pretty coordinated to make the team, and I just wasn't. I did play baseball, the same kind of thing. Our team had a guy who could throw like 90 miles an hour, and then they would put me in at the end of the game, and I threw like 50, so everyone just couldn't get the timing right on the pitches.
Yeah, I like that idea.
I did play lacrosse, which I don't know do you know what lacrosse is in Ireland?
I know it from the movies. We don't have it here, but I know it from the movies. All right, yeah. So it's like a tennis racket, but there's a curve in the racket where you can hold the ball in the racket. Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's like a net on the end of like the pole, and there's all the different rules to it. But I played lacrosse a lot. It was kind of like in terms of like rough sports, that was kind of the rougher sport that I played. It doesn't hold a candle to rugby or anything like you may be used to. Yeah.
I mean, rugby is a fantastic sport. It is, we look at American football and we go, all right, what are they wearing all these girly pads for? But like rugby is very much so full contact, full on sport. And, you do have to be a certain type of person to be able to play rugby. Otherwise, you're going to be folded in two when you go into a scrum and something like that as well. But, like, it's interesting. You say that you're 6'5". I mean, you're the perfect height for basketball. And I imagine you can, just get the tall guy, you get him in here, he's going to be good. But then, as you say, the coordination wasn't there. So you might have been the sixth player to be picked out of five. So then you're not going to get onto the first round team, I imagine, in that way. But do you find that your experience with sport and the discipline that sport brings to you, has that helped your photography going into the photography sphere? Have you learned things that you still bring to this day from a sports psychology point of view or anything like that?
That's a very good question. I think so. I still will go run and train and do other stuff like I did in high school. But for the most part, I think the mental side, how I was coached, it's been a positive and negative, I think.
Okay.
I was coached in a way that it was win or lose. It was ultra competitive, and that's how I was. And if I did not win a game, I was tore up, man. I could not handle it. I was frustrated. I would try to figure out what went wrong. And I have been tempted to pull that mindset into photography as well, but it never really goes well for you because you have no control over conditions or anything like that. I think it has been a positive for me in terms of getting to locations and continuing to try. Because like I said, I wasn't, on that first team in high school all the time. But I would continue to train. I would continue to try and go out. And kind of, I was always tempted to not try out the next year, but I would still go for it. And I think in photography, that's helped me on the physical side, going on long treks or longer, steeper hikes. That's something that I still enjoy because it does have that mental side of it where if I'm hiking for, 8 hours, let's say, one of the famous hikes in the Smokies, Mount LeConte, it's not an easy hike to get up and back down in a single day. Am I tempted to turn around halfway up? Yeah, but I am enamored by the challenge of the physical side of that. Can I do it? How much does it take? And I'll watch, I'll listen to motivational speeches from coaches and stuff like that still. So I'm kind of weird like that.
No, but you know what? I think it's very, very valid though, because sports psychology is really, really powerful because, I often use an example here with friends of mine and people that I work with is that, Usain Bolt, when he's lining up on the start of the 100 meters, he is not thinking, I hope I don't come last. I hope I don't come last. He is thinking about coming first. And he's not thinking about anybody else. He says, I'm going, there's my line, that's my focus, and that's where I'm going. There will be times that he won't become first. Okay, they're rare in the last number of years, but there's been times, obviously, in his career that he hadn't come first. And it's that mentality that allows you to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and start the next game again. Because if you beat yourself up too much, like you say, halfway up that trek, you might turn and go, oh, geez, okay, I'm tired, I want to get back. The motivational speech, that's what pushes you there, but also the goal that you've set yourself to reach. And then when you reach that goal, next time you do it, you'll say, okay, I want to do it the next time without stopping halfway or without stopping 3/4. And that's what pushes people on. And it's just, there's a huge benefit, I think, from a mindset point of view that sports brings. And that's why I was interested to kind of see how that would have affected your photography as well, because that is a very good motivator. It does push you on as well to achieve. And it makes you get better, I think, by default. And your photography effectively will evolve as well over the years because of that motivation. Because if we don't have motivation, I mean, something I've spoken again before on is that everybody's motivation is different. But there's two real types of motivation. You're either motivated towards something good or away from something bad. And if you understand where your motivation is coming from, the net result is still exactly the same thing. So it comes from when we were kids. It comes from when we were growing up. If our parents said to us, okay, if you're bold again, you won't get this. Or if you're good, you will get this. It's the same thing that they will get, but the motivation picks on the individual person. So sport, I think, for me is really, really powerful from that point of view.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And you saying that, like, I was thinking about, a lot of times in sport, how, if I'm 6'5", I was very skinny at the time, so I couldn't, and I was one of the taller people in my school. So I was under 6 feet when I started high school. So I played a different position. Between freshman year and sophomore year, I grew 6 inches and I was 6'5". Wow. So I was playing this new position. I didn't know kind of what to do. The guys I was playing against were twice as wide as I was. And I would be very intimidated by that of like, okay, just don't screw up this shot. When I would turn that switch, and you saying that made me remember this. There was one game I did play against this person that I really did not like, and I was just like, I'm going to absolutely dominate this game. And it was like lights out. I couldn't miss, but going back to that over and over, I would always default to these guys are bigger than me. They have the advantage there. And I think that's a really good point of saying, the Usain Bolt example, he looked at winning the race. And we as photographers, if we're confident in what we're doing and we have that motivation, we look at, these are the conditions we have. This is the light we have. I know what to do with the camera. This is the lens I'm going to use. I'm going to get the best shot that I can get here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's very, very interesting to even hear your thought on it, because like I say, sports played such a big part, and the motivation to be able to do that, but also it gives you the physical ability as well to be able to do those hikes and such like that. And if I can go to a different topic for a moment, right? So when I was doing research, obviously, on you to discuss different things, I noticed that, in 2017, you and your wife, you moved to Haiti. And that's a whole different world completely from what you're used to. But also, you have to have a mental resilience as well to be able to go there and thrive. You also have to have the physical ability to be able to go there and thrive. So can you tell us, I suppose, a couple of things there in relation to that? Number one, about that part of your life. What was the motivation to go to Haiti and such like that? And also, did that have an effect on your photography journey also?
Yeah, both. So the decision to go there, my wife and I were both Christ followers, so we're Christians, and we had this idea of that we would travel, that while we traveled, we would help people along the way. Okay. Once we made our first trip, which was Haiti, we came back and we described like, okay, we feel like we should move to Haiti and be missionaries. And we thought about this. We went on several trips to all different locations in Haiti. And then we ultimately made that move in 2017, in April, I believe. And we lived there for 2 years. Now, the interesting word that you use there is thrive. I don't know if I was set up mentally to thrive. I was set up mentally to survive. Okay. And not that I was like starving or anything, but mentally seeing what I would see and what I would experience, I was not ready for that. And maybe I was a bit naive in that sense. Now, let me say this. Haiti is a beautiful place. I love the people there. They couldn't be nicer, more welcoming. People invited us into their homes, giving us, food, feeding us, making these relationships and connections. People were amazing. And I loved the Haitian people and their culture, and what I learned from them. Now, in terms of the side of not being prepared fully, to see what I saw or experience what I saw. And that could be from leadership of what we were under, or that could be from cultural differences that you experience, and culture shock that is a real thing. I started to develop tendencies of drawing back, and that's in my photography too. You know, I put my camera down for 6 months. I didn't touch it. I started picking it back up to take photos. My wife is a nurse midwife and a women's health nurse practitioner. So she was helping these women through their birth, and we would go to their homes. I would drive to their homes, and my wife would be with me, and she had 2 Haitian nurses that we would go out and visit these people with. And I would take their picture of them holding their baby for the first time and show them. And I didn't understand the gravity of the moment at the time, but those are some of my favorite photos that I've ever shot. It's just so meaningful to me to, like I said, remember them inviting us into their homes and sharing that experience with them, and them being so excited when they saw the photograph. Coming back from Haiti, I did start to pick my camera up a little bit more when I understood weather patterns of the Caribbean climate. Storms would roll in at like 4 o'clock every day. So I would go out and try to photograph storms and do time lapses and all that fun stuff. And like we said, you know, just try stuff out and see if I could get it. But when I came back from Haiti and started doing my new podcast, started doing more of the YouTube stuff, I started to notice that drawback. I thought that it would go away, and it increased. I became reclusive. I became, you know, I don't know about angry, but kind of agitated. And I started going to counseling for it. And my counselor said, well, everything you're describing is PTSD. You know, we went through some of the things that I saw, some of the things that I went through and experienced. And we did EMDR training for PTSD. And, you know, I'm thrilled to say I'm much better now. I still have some challenging nights and challenging weeks, but for the most part, you know, I am much better than I was. Do I still struggle with that? Yeah. Do I still struggle with anxiety? Getting on an airplane is extremely difficult for me. In terms of just those experiences, going to Haiti and being there for a long period of time, I think had a very strange effect on me. I don't want to say negative, but it had a much different effect on me than it would if, you know, I'm going on vacation on an airplane. Now that's bled over into photography trips. I get very anxious before going on a trip and trying to figure out all the logistics of everything. So it was a great 2 years. It was a wild 2 years. And it was a rough 2 years. I'll say it's this paradox of good and bad that you hold in the same basket.
Yeah, and you know, it more or less strikes me as a kind of a life-changing moment, a life-changing experience. But as you say here, when you came back the first time and you picked up the camera and you started to look and learn more about weather patterns, you kind of got more in tune, I think, with nature, because obviously with the disaster that Haiti would have had, it's caused by nature. And with that in mind, I suppose something I wanted to discuss with you is you're very much so an advocate of preserving nature. Now, that's a topic that we could have a conversation with for a couple of hours on itself alone. But as a kind of an overview, really, where did that passion for the preservation come from, and where does it sit with you now?
I think it did stem from Haiti because it's such a beautiful country, but they have so much trash everywhere. They have a huge problem with trash cleanup. You know, they don't have a public waste system, landfills. It kind of just all goes to the side of the road. And then when you do get these natural floods that tend to happen, and these monsoon downpours and hurricanes, then your streets are covered in mud and styrofoam takeout boxes and paper cups and plastic bags. And it tarnishes what a beautiful country it is. Now, coming back, when I started to see more graffiti on some of my favorite hikes and my favorite locations, when I started to see that trash, I think it reminded me of what I saw there in terms of litter and kind of damaging the natural resources that are there. And it hurt. It made me really sad. And I think going about natural preservation, especially with photography, even locally, seeing, there's a local hike that I do in a forest, and there's a face spray painted on one of the trees. I used to go by, if I were there in years past, I would go by it and be like, haha, somebody spray painted a face. Mm-hmm. But now I go by it and I'm like, well, that's going to be there forever. And that's going to, harm, not only it's going to ruin a photograph for me, but it's going to damage everybody's experience with that place. It's going to probably have negative effects on the bark of the tree rings inside. It could damage the roots. I don't know what chemicals are in spray paint, but I can imagine they're probably not good for nature.
Not natural anyway, for sure. Yeah.
So I think coming back from that and starting to see, more foot traffic on some places that I go to, and more litter and more damage, it just kind of reached a point where I wanted to start speaking up a little bit more about it. Wanted to start getting involved, like Nature First movement that I know Matt Payne and a lot of other photographers started and are known for. So I'm more than thrilled to be a part of that. And also working with the Nature Conservancy in Tennessee on some photo projects kind of gave me a deeper understanding and relationship for areas in Tennessee that are unexplored, that they're looking at protecting as well.
Yeah, very interesting. And I suppose one thing that comes to mind from that is people might say, look, it's only a small bit of spray paint on one tree. Everything starts with something. And when somebody else comes along there, it's okay to do that here. And then all of a sudden, there's now 2. And then the next person comes there, and now there's 3. And then and before you realize it, you have a number of trees that have been defaced, all starting from 1. And I think that's the problem that we have with the damage that people are doing, because they're not thinking full stop. I mean, there's not even a further area to go on that. They're just not thinking, and it's selfish. And I do think, every time I go out, I find rubbish or trash that's been left behind. And really, I mean, seriously, why does somebody think that that's acceptable? And I think it is something that we have to be more cognizant of. We have to be more aware of, but I think we have to be more respectful of as well. Because if we're not respecting of nature, it's the next generation that comes up. Like my kids will go into my local woods, and all they'll ever know is that tree that has the face with graffiti on it.
Yeah.
They'll never know anything other than that. And that's a shame, The human race, I think, has a lot to answer for. I mean, we've done a lot of good, but from nature's point of view, we haven't. And I've recorded a podcast with Matt Payne as well, and we discussed that also, because it is something that is very, very important. And collectively, we can all do a small bit, but make a big difference. So I think, it's interesting there that comes from your experience in Haiti as well. So yeah, look, that was a very interesting first chat that we've had here, David. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a very, very quick break, and we'll be right back after this. If you're enjoying this episode of the Irish Photography Podcast, why not jump back and listen to the back catalogue we have of episodes, where you'll get some great insights from fantastic guests, gear reviews, lots of hints and tips, and above all else, keeping you company while you drive or relax. Thanks very much for listening. Please consider subscribing, leaving a review wherever you're listening to this podcast. And you're very welcome back to the Irish Photography Podcast. So, David, like I said there in the first part of the show, I kind of want to come back with something different now, right? So I want to discuss your photography journey, but what you do, I think, is quite good, different, and unique as well, because you offer people huge amounts of advice in the form of, ebooks or video and such like that as well, and also on your website. And you'll teach people how to take better photographs. So within that whole ecosystem and sphere of teaching, do you have a preferred way to teach people? Do you find something that is, more rewarding from your point of view, or for the newsletters? which do you prefer to kind of help people out on?
I think, what comes to mind for me, and it's actually surprising to me, is the in-person instruction. And I haven't led workshops in years. I did one private one in, I believe, 2019 in the fall. And that experience was very rewarding. Now, selfishly, I want to say video content because I really enjoy making videos out in the field. I think, I like taking pictures. I do not like the post-processing necessarily. I'm the opposite with video. I don't really like filming in field, but I love editing a video and putting it together and adding a little bit, like this little extra sound that just makes the video that much better in this one spot. And I want to say video because I enjoy it, but I think that would be selfish. In field is really what gives the most value to the person that I'm teaching. And that's always what I want my business to be around, is adding as much value to the person that's investing in me as possible. So that could be, if you are on my email list, I'm going to give you emails where 90% of them are for free content where you can learn. 10% is going to be, hey, I just finished this course on panorama photography. You can buy it if you want. You can move on to the next email if you don't. So that's kind of my business structure in selling courses. What I love to show people in the field is their way of seeing the landscape. And what I mean by that is, if we're, in a location and I frame up a shot and they're kind of off a little bit, kind of doing their own thing, trying to figure it out. And they asked me to come over and they say, hey, what do you think about this composition? My favorite question to ask them is, well, what do you like about it? And they always kind of take a step back and they're like, well, let's take, for example, if they're shooting a mountain stream, I like this boulder with some of the fall leaves on it as my foreground. And you say, what takes away from that? What distracts from that element in your composition? And they kind of work with it a little bit, and you could see the wheels turning, and they reframe it, and they're like, well, what do you see in this composition? And I'm like, well, what do you like in the photograph? And we go on this round and round conversation. And through whittling it down, they kind of discover what pops out at them, what they take notice to in the landscape, versus me just saying, here's the composition, here's the foreground, here's, a leading line to the waterfall, and shoot it and you're going to have a great shot. It's more of the self-expression aspect that I love to show people how to do when I am teaching them. And through video, you can do that a little bit, but it's so hard to do in terms of, personalizing it to an individual, unlike you can do in a workshop setting or in a private workshop setting.
Yeah, very interesting on that one, because, if you're out in the field with somebody, you're dealing with dynamic light. You can read something from a book, you can watch something on a video, but the light will never be the same as it is in front of you. And I really like what you said there about, what do you like about it? Because you could turn around and say, look, hang on a second, and you'll create the composition for them. Then they never learn. Then they never figure out what they like within the composition. So that is a very good approach. And I think it is something which can help somebody figure it out themselves. It's but without figuring out themselves, because you're steering them in the right direction. And then all of a sudden it's clicking. So when they go back out the next time, they're not going to have you next to them. They're going to have different light, but they're going to have those lessons that you've given them vicariously through themselves, learning the answers also. Hang on, when I was there the last time, David asked me what did I like. Now I can do the same thing. So that's about educating people, as opposed to read it in a book, learn the exposure triangle and off you go.
Yeah. And you also have to take a back seat to your own preferences, right? Like, if somebody is asking me the exact same thing in post-processing, but they've added a lot of warm temperature to it, and they're like, well, I like what this has done to the image. I can't be like, that's not really my thing. Do it this way. I'm like, well, the same question. What do you like about it? Why do you like that effect? And it's just, it's almost how I go through the process in my mind when I'm in the field, just constantly asking myself how, why, what, where, which, and all these questions that go into a composition and framing up a shot. So I try to frame it in a way that they can learn.
Absolutely. And a question then as well is, what do you think is the steepest learning curve that people need to overcome? Not only when they're starting photography, but even if they're intermediate, or even if they're perceiving themselves to be advanced. But what is the biggest learning curve that they need to come, do you think?
I think you already said it and in our talk, and that's making mistakes. I think that's the biggest thing that people need to overcome, is giving themselves permission to make a mistake, giving themselves permission to come back home without any photo at all and still consider it a success, a fun time, a learning process, just getting out of the house and taking a breather. That is something that I not only constantly have to remind myself of, but if somebody comes to me and they're like, well, I didn't like any photos that I got today, I'm like, okay, was it still fun? Did you have a good time? What did you learn about yourself? What did you learn about your photography? And look, if somebody's paying to come on a workshop or paying for a course, after they go out and shoot, what they learn from that course, they're going to want a good photograph. I understand where they're coming from, but at the same time, the mentality of making mistakes and not coming back with a great foreground, a rainbow in the sky, and all these conditions that aren't necessarily a reality, that is the biggest learning curve that I see people struggling with.
Absolutely. I agree with you fully on that one. Let's talk about the podcast. So let's get into the nitty gritty in regards to something you started when you came back, as you say, from Haiti, and you said, okay, I'm going to dive into this. Tell us how the podcast started. I mean, look, it's a landscape photography show. It's a really, really interesting podcast. To kind of preface it there for you, you've had some fantastic guests over a number of episodes. How many episodes are you up to now?
77 soon. I think we just released 76, so 77 coming up.
Okay, so you've a lot under your belt. So how did the podcast start? What was the motivation to do it? And how many mistakes did you make at the beginning?
Oh my gosh, mistakes. Hundreds, I think. And you'll probably know this too. Like, if I go through a podcast and listen and I hear like a follow-up question that I missed, that I think about in the editing process, I'm like, and it just eats me up. I started this one when I got back from Haiti, and my first one, the photography roundtable, was much more geared towards like the technical side and asking the same composition questions over and over. I had a lot of the same guests on a lot, and I kind of got burnt out on it. Okay. And this one, I wanted it to be really different. And it wasn't, I really credit Sarah Marino for helping me come up with this idea, because she was one of the first people that I interviewed coming back. And I was kind of struggling like with the first 5 to 10 people I interviewed, because I wanted those first 10 under my belt to give me a buffer, and not, if I missed one this week, I still wanted to have one to come out. And I was like, this is kind of ending up the same way as the last one did. And I don't know if I want to go that direction. And she was like, well, who do you have coming up? And I, listed out some people. And one of the people on the list was Erin Bobnick, who, is a great photographer. She's a great friend, and just a really good person. And she said, I would love to hear Erin talk about her creative space after her house burned down in the California wildfires. Okay. And something like that is something I had never even thought of before. Like, who is that photographer as a person, and what have they gone through that helped them reach where they are as a photographer now, help them reach their philosophy of photography and also their philosophy of life. So a lot of the people that I bring on, I'll run through their About Me page. I'll pick out some things that, of course, they're ready to answer. But episodes like Charlotte Gibb is obviously fresh on my mind because that's the last one that I released. And we talk about parenting tactics. We talk about her experience seeing climate change in Yosemite. We talk about, would she ever want her kids to pick up a camera? Was it challenging for her to mountaineer after her father died mountaineering when she was 4 years old? So you get a lot of these discussions with people that you see a new side of them. They're not talking about their compositions, their style in photography, their camera gear that they're using, but in turn, you're seeing them more as a human being. And I think it gives them the opportunity to express that to their audience, since that's kind of who they're marketing it to when they release it on social media or to their email list. Those people that follow them get to learn about them as a person, and not as somebody who just spills out photography knowledge of, exposure this, aperture that.
Absolutely. And, what do you enjoy most about your, I suppose I was going to say your new form podcast, but effectively it is the new form podcast. But what do you enjoy most about podcasting, let's just say?
Learning about people, and having those connections would be the easy answer for me. Hearing their experience, like I said, and just learning what they've been through. And I love, like we've talked about competitive nature of sports. I love when I can go toe to toe with somebody, asking them difficult questions and them coming right back at me with a difficult answer that's vulnerable for them. I love getting to a question that makes people say, that's a really good question. Or like that they take a long pause and then I edit out later because they're like, I've never thought of that before. And, we take this long pause where they have to really think about it for a second.
Gather the thoughts.
Yeah, those I just love. It almost feels like a little win for me, but I also love to hear their first thought of that when they come back at me with an answer.
No, very interesting. Yeah, very good. And out of the 77 that you've recorded, I know it's hard for me to ask this question, but have you a favorite and why?
One favorite?
Yeah, one.
I'm going to say David Thompson. I had him on and we had no idea this was going to come up. I scheduled him to come on, and the week in between we said we were going to record. And when we actually did record, the murder of George Floyd happened in the United States and set off, all these new discussions about race relations. And him being a black photographer, I emailed him and said, hey, are you comfortable sharing this information? Are you comfortable getting your feelings out on this? He said yes, and we spent 30 minutes talking about his experience dealing with race throughout his life, his feelings on what was going on in the United States at that time, and still really going on today.
Yeah, for sure.
And just what white people need to know. I mean, like
wake up calls.
Yeah. He's dealt with so many more things, so many more thoughts. And I had a lot of people message me after that saying, I've never felt like that, or I never thought somebody could feel like that. And I had a lot of other African Americans email me or message me saying, hey, this is what I feel. Thank you for doing this episode. And it's scary for me to do because I grew up in the South in the United States. I grew up in an affluent community. I didn't have a lot of friends of color when I was growing up. And I was really unfamiliar with that stage. And all the credit goes to him because he taught me so much during that discussion. And he was the one who was brave and vulnerable to share that and teach me on the spot.
Yeah, but you know what? Kudos to you as well for being able to have that conversation of a raw element, let's just say, to be able to be articulated in a way that it can appeal to so many different people as well. Because, you know, okay, timing, yes, no, what happened to George Floyd was horrific. And even now, even the news we're hearing at the moment, you know, that's still continuing on. But to be able to have that conversation and a raw discussion on the podcast that can resonate with so many people, that's a fantastic thing to be able to have under your belt, let's just say, within the podcast. So yeah, kudos to you for being able to, you know, conduct that conversation.
Thank you.
Something else, you know, I've alluded to it from my point of view with my kids and such like that, but I know you have a very young baby. So how do you balance your professional photography life and family life now as well at the moment, keeping everything that we've discussed? So, you know, you go out, you take photos, you create newsletters, you've got a YouTube channel, you've got a podcast, you create video content to help people, you create courses.
Tell me, man, you have 2 kids.
I know, it's not easy.
It's been a learning process. I recently emailed Sean Bagshaw, who has kids of his own, who's, you know, a great photographer, has had a great business for a long time. And I was just like, hey, I need some advice here. I'm trying to keep my head above water with everything going on, because my wife and I have decided to, you know, be serious co-parents in the fact that she keeps Aspen while I'm working, and then the days that she works in her clinic, you know, I'll keep her. We don't send her to daycare or anything. So I've had to take 2 to 3 days off per week, spending time with Aspen and keeping her, which I don't regret at all, but it has put a lot of pressure on the framework of my business that I already had in place before she came into our lives, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
So he gave me some great advice of, hey, your job is to be a parent, it's to be a husband, is to do the things that help you to not go bankrupt. So that's kind of what I've done. I've taken several weeks now off of YouTube, so I haven't put a video out in 3 weeks. I have some, you know, ready to go. I have some raw footage of stuff that I've filmed when I've been out, but now instead of, okay, I post every Sunday at 11 a.m., it's kind of moved towards I'm just going to post when I can, like when I have the opportunity. So the balance of things has swayed from one side to the other. After Aspen was born, you know, I spent so much time in those first few weeks with her, getting accustomed to having a child, that I took so much time off of photography that I really remembered why I enjoyed it so much and what even the business side of it gives me in terms of appreciation and joy. So it's been a really interesting balance. I feel like dropping the consistent commitment of YouTube has been good for me. And I was interested to see what it would do for the people who have subscribed to me, and they have asked, you know, where a video is when it's coming out. But when I explain it to them, they're very understanding. And then also, like, analytics side, I have no drop off in views of past videos or subscriber rate. You know, it's up and down all the time. You know, if I don't post for 3 weeks and I have a surge, it's just this random, I don't know, glitch in their
in the matrix.
And whatever they're doing over there. So I used to stress about it, but now I don't stress very much. I still do the podcast on a weekly basis for the time being. But you know, if I decide that's getting too much, I'll drop that. And, all those things are going to be there when I have the ability to pick them back up. They're going to be there. You know, YouTube's not going anywhere. if it does, there's going to be a new platform to grow and share your thoughts. So that's kind of the approach. And thanks to Sean for helping me realize that. That's probably the approach that I'll take moving forward.
Yeah, you know what is the most valid approach to take as well, because everything that you do for your family. So your family should be coming first in the approach of what you do for them. So if it takes time away from them, 100%, you know, like you said to me,
Isn't
you know,
it so easy to get it twisted though?
So
like
easy.
You're a dad.
Yeah. So it's so easy. I mean, you ask me, you know, how do I do it? I've got 2 kids. I'm lucky I have a very supportive wife who allows me to get my release from the real world to go take photos. But no, I can't go take photos. Well, I can. It's handy at the moment because I'm able to go to the woods that's next door, so I'm not going far away. But, you know, I think the old phrase is that everything is good for you in moderation. Too much of something can be bad for you. And if that's the case, then I think it's valid as well, even from my own balance. Because, you know, I could dive headlong, head to toe in photography, but something has to give there. If I dive head to toe into the family, which I do, but photography is still part of my DNA per se. So it is a case of, you know, scheduling it out and saying, okay, this is when I'm going to do that. And if something has to give, it has to give. I mean, the podcast, the Irish Photography Podcast, was weekly for 2 years, up as far as November last year. And I had a co-host, and exactly the same thing, Diarmid, his business, because it was gone with the whole COVID situation. He had to spend time with his family. He said, Darren, look, I don't even have time to do any podcast. Never mind, say, one a week or one every 2 weeks or one every month. So I said, sure, no problem. We moved it then to every 2 weeks. So my podcast goes out every 2 weeks now. And that's fine. That's manageable. But there'll come a time then where like right now, I'll record this. This probably won't go out for 4 weeks because I've got built up. You know what I mean? So it's about moderation, dedicating the time, blocking out the time, but cutting off at that point and saying enough's enough. Like the old stays, you know, work stays in work, home is at home. From a traditional job, you don't bring work home. The challenge with photography is you edit it at home, you're processing it at home. You know, it is all at home, but it is a challenge, and it's something that I'm still trying to figure out the balance. And I know it's going to change as my kids will get older, because I'm going to have to do more time now again with them, bringing them to games, bringing them to friends, bringing them to parties, whereas now they're young enough that I don't have to do that. So, yeah, I think everything is going to evolve, but I think it's how you, in your mindset, decide what takes priority, which is the most important. That's what I think. For
sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Something I wanted to touch on, I've alluded to it a couple of moments ago about you educating and giving so much to people. You've created a free ebook that anybody can get. When I go onto your website, hey, how you doing? Sign up here. I'll send you my free ebook. What made you come up with that idea? I think it's a phenomenal idea, to be honest with you, because a lot of people create an ebook and they go, my new ebook is launching. It's only going to be, well, it's normally $29.99. It's going to be on sale for, you're saying, no, it's free. What made you come up with that idea?
And in addition to that, now I'm also to go along with the ebook. So Brilliant. You get 2 of those now when you sign up. You know, I think email marketing and having an email list is the most valuable thing you can do if you are in business as a photographer, even if you're doing it as a side business, because those are the people who are asking you to send them content. They're asking you to take up rent in their email inbox, which we all know can be just cluster of random stuff. So if they're asking you to send them stuff, they want to hear from you. And as a thank you for me taking up rent in their life when they're going through business emails or sale emails at their favorite local shops, or I don't know what emails people are getting. If they're asking me to take up rent in that space of their lives, I want to thank them by giving something that can help them. And, you know, the video course is, I believe, 45 minutes long, something around that point. The ebook is 126 pages of just information that I've learned as a photographer. And I used to sell that ebook too, but deciding when I came back from Haiti to make it for free was something that I wanted to do. And it kind of all goes back to like the 90% free, 10% paid philosophy that I have in business is, if again, you're signing up for me to send you content, I want to thank you in that framework and send you something that you can easily download. Maybe it gives you all the information that you need from me and you never buy something from me, but at least I helped you in some way, form, or fashion. I don't want it to be a money grab.
Yeah, no, kudos to you for doing that. When we get to the, I was going to say when we get to the end of the podcast, I'll be putting all your links and everything else where people can go to. So we'll put that into the show notes as well. But we'll cover that on it as well. Yeah, but well done on that. Yeah. Final question for you before we go for our last break, and it's something that how I started talking to you, how I got in contact with you, is the new social phenomenon, which is Clubhouse. Now, I mean, I think it's something that technically speaking can change the game because it gives you a platform to be able to communicate with people. You can go up on stage, you can, shout whatever you want to say, and people will react and give you their feedback and such like that. 2 questions on Clubhouse for you. Number 1, what do you think of it and do you enjoy it? And then number 2, do you think it's going to change the podcasting sphere or the podcasting dynamic?
I love it because it levels the playing ground. You have access to people like, if we were talking like this on Clubhouse, they would have direct access if you gave them the ability to join in on the conversation. Mm-hmm. Whereas if they sent, somebody an email that they really looked up to who was, I don't know, let's throw out like Chris Burkard. Let's throw out like Thor, who you had on recently, who's, photographing the Icelandic volcano or something. Let's say all the emails he gets for the volcano, kind of bury the one that you send him reaching out to. Now, I'm not saying that this would happen to him or he would do this, but just all the attention that through the cracks of my email. Sorry about that. So I think Clubhouse gives you that access directly to your favorite people that you can talk to. Now, of podcasting, it could change podcasting in terms of we could just have this conversation live, or we could easily set up a panel and have a discussion like I know you do basically every Friday. So I think it has the ability to change podcasting, but I don't think we should be afraid of that. We should absorb it for what it is, because I think it gives value to the people listening and adapt what we're doing to it instead of resisting it too much. Because if you resist something in the long run.
Yeah, it's the old phrase that, the dinosaurs, they are gone because they didn't evolve effectively. You have to evolve or you'll die, because you have to change with what is the sphere of the social world. And if we're not in tune with that, from what we're doing from a photography point of view, but like Clubhouse, people might think, what is Clubhouse? It's very hard to describe what Clubhouse is, because, it's a platform where you can talk about anything. You can have different rooms about anything. It just so happens, from my point of view, I only listen to rooms about photography. But if I'm interested in crocheting, I guarantee you there are rooms there to talk about crocheting. And if there are people that are the big names in crocheting, they're going to want to be on that, because they're going to want to tell people how good they are, but they're also going to want to give people the opportunity to ask them a question directly. And that's what I like about it. You can get a question straight out and get an answer. You can put your hand up, you can go up on stage and say, "Hi, my name is Darren. I've loved your work for the last 20 years. How did you do this?" You're talking to the person. And that is something which is effectively unheard of, because it's not just the average Joe Blogs like you and me that's on this. There are some big names that have decided to say, you know what, my audience is here as well, and I'd love to be able to talk to them directly too. So I think it's going to be a very interesting platform how it evolves out. I saw a news story the other day that Spotify are after buying some business that has some opportunity to do something similar to Clubhouse. So there will become more versions of Clubhouse and different iterations of it. But the concept, I think, is really, really good.
What it has shown us is that availability is an underrated commodity.
Yes, agreed. Yeah, agreed. All right, and on that bombshell, what I'll do is I'm going to take a last break, and I'll be right back. I have 3 questions I ask every single guest, and I'm not going to let you off. I'm going to ask you the same 3 questions as well. So yeah, we'll be right back after this. If you're enjoying this episode of the Irish Photography Podcast, why not jump back and listen to the back catalogue we have of episodes, where you'll get some great insights from fantastic guests, gear reviews, lots of hints and tips, and above all else, keeping you company while you drive or relax. Thanks very much for listening. Please consider subscribing, leaving a review wherever you're listening to this podcast. And you're very welcome back to the final part of the Irish Photography Podcast. So, first question. Give us a funny photography story. So, what's yours, David Johnston?
Okay, so one of my good friends that I go photograph with, Dusty Doddridge, we go
what
to
a
the
cool
Smoky
name,
Lot.
man. Hang on.
Isn't it?
What a cool name.
I'm
wow.
telling you. And
yeah.
Look, he, what's his friend's name? His friend's name is like Rusty Bridges or something. He always tells me stories about this other guy that he goes out and shoots with. I don't know. But Dusty and I are going hiking up one of the most, it's a very popular hike in the Smokies, and I've never done it before. And he's like, it's 10 a.m. We've already done one hike. We've gone to shoot a waterfall. And I'm like, I'm a little hungry. Do you think we can go do this other hike? I've never done it before. And he's like, oh, yeah. We can easily do it, not telling me that it is an extreme elevation gain. It's uphill the entire way. It's like 4 miles to the waterfall. So round trip, it's an 8-mile trek, and I'm starving already. I just want a burger or something.
Yeah.
And he doesn't tell me any of this. We get up halfway, I'm like, man, I'm struggling here. And he's like, oh, just the classic hiker tale. Just another mile and a half.
Yeah, over the
just
next
around
ridge.
the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we finally get up there, and I'm like gritting my teeth. I'm furious with him. But the waterfall is beautiful. It's icy. It snowed up there recently, so it's like this wintry type of landscape. Even though it's March when we went up and shot it. Everything is green on the forest floor down where we started, but it's icy up top. The only problem with that is now all of the water is icy underneath. So we kind of, gently walk across the bottom of the waterfall to get to the other side. It's a better composition. And, I post this photograph of this waterfall sometimes on Instagram, at least like once every 6 months, and people are like, oh, what a great composition. How did you get it? And I'm always just like, well, I just saw it. But the reality is that Dusty's off kind of shooting his own thing. And I'm like, there's another cascade just below that rock that I think I could get to. So I kind of, teeter on the ice going out there. All of a sudden my feet go out from under me, and my butt hits that ridge, and it's like you start sliding. And when you're up on a cascade that high on ice, the first thought that runs through my mind is, I don't know when I'm going to stop sliding on this thing. So luckily for me, I did stop sliding a couple ridges down and kind of, stopped my heart from beating really fast, turned around, and there was like this nice foreground cascade that I was able to put into the foreground. And, the waterfall up top was misty and icy and foggy. But then once you take the shot, now you have to figure out how you're going to get up that ridge and get back up there. And there were several slips and stumbles along the way, but we did finally make it to get burgers.
Well, you know what? Only for falling on your butt and sliding down, you probably would never have found that composition. So they say, every cloud has a silver lining.
Yeah, that's it.
Had you your camera gear in your hand when you slipped down the cascade, or was it bagged up?
No, I did have it in my hand. I had it like on my tripod, the camera was on it with the L bracket and everything. I didn't hit it on anything.
Wow.
I think just Freudly in my mind, I just like held it up above my head and just hoped that it wouldn't hit any rocks or trees.
Yeah, you know what? Instinctively, you kind of saved the camera for another day, and you were able to get that shot.
Exactly.
Yeah. I actually thought
Exactly.
what you were going to say to was that you hiked 4 miles in and then 4 miles back, but then you put it up online and someone went, "Oh, is that the waterfall close to the top car park?"
I shot that from the parking lot just last week.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. All right, no, good story, good story, good story. Okay, second staple question I have is, what gear do you use, and do you suffer from much gas?
Yeah, I do. I will admit that I do. But it's short lived because I'm also very stingy with money.
Okay.
I have friends that say I squeeze pennies so tight I could make them cry. Now, I bought an old A7R2 after the A7R4 came out, so it dropped the price a little bit on that A7R2.
Mm-hmm.
Sony 70-200 f4 lens and a Tamron 17 to 23, 28, something around that range.
Okay.
So a good, wide angle zoom. Tamron lenses are amazing. I really
Yeah.
love them too.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the Lens Baby Velvet 56 that I shoot with too is kind of my go-to macro there. Do you want me to go like the whole
No.
bag situation?
No. I have one other question to ask you since you said the Sony A7 R Mark II. How many batteries have you?
Gosh, at least 15. I mean, the whole top part of my camera bag is camera batteries. I'm not even joking. It's like that. Their battery system is so dumb. I hate it so much,
Yeah.
but I love that camera so much.
Now, the Sony cameras are fantastic, I have to say. I mean, I shoot Canon, and I nearly made the switch to Sony, but I was hearing nightmares about batteries. I went, no, it's okay. I'll stick with Canon. So,
Right.
good, very, very good camera and great dynamic range as well, which is one thing that the Sonys have, I think, a good edge on a lot of the others on. Okay. What tripod do you use?
I'm using what am I using? A Gitzo
Nice.
tripod.
Nice. Me too. Yeah. How'd you find it?
So one of the companies that I work with, Outdoor Photography Guide, I do a lot of contracting videos and articles with them.
Yeah.
And we did a sponsored video, and don't let them see this video because they have never asked for it back. So I've just continued to review it over
Yes.
several months.
Yes. Yes.
But I will continue to do that until they ask for it back.
Yeah, no, I have as well. Mountaineer or something like that is the one that I have, and the old phrase they say, "Never meet your heroes."
Yeah.
I said this actually on one that I recorded with Chris and Mike Perea, that because Chris Perea has a Gitzo tripod as well, but she loves it. I'm not overly enamored with it, to be honest with you. I was like, okay, yeah, right, never meet your heroes, you'd be disappointed. But to be fair to it though, it hasn't failed me at all.
Right.
But yeah, they're good. They're good. But I wonder, like, I mean, the one I have here, I think was retailing at €1,400, which is expensive for a tripod. But
Yeah.
how many people have you met over the years that have put $5,000 on a $50 tripod? I mean, there's no point in doing
That's right.
that, So yeah, you have good feet. It's really, really important. Yeah.
And I needed one, I mentioned I was 6'5". I needed one that I could not have to bend over at my waist every single time. I needed a taller one, and that has fit the bill for me.
Ticks the boxes. Okay. Final question. VSP. Very solid product. What's yours?
Can I go off script here?
Of course you can. It doesn't even have to be photography. It could be plasters for your toes.
Okay. I'm going to go with instant coffee packets.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Yeah. Not even the Starbucks ones, just like the cheapo dollar store. I've spent so many nights sleeping in my car and waking, not even having hot water, but just putting them in a lukewarm water bottle and shaking them up. I will have a debilitating headache if I do not have coffee in the morning. And those, even though it tastes like old chimney soot, it's exactly what I need in the morning.
Old chimney soot. I love it.
It's true. It's awful.
Yeah, but it's a good product to have because if it helps you, it needs it, then it is something you won't leave home without. So yeah, a very, very solid VSP, absolutely. Yeah, very good. So, David, we're almost there, I suppose. A couple of final questions just to wrap up here is, what's next for you? What's on the agenda in the next, 3, 6 months, a year down the line? What's next for you?
So this spring is pretty busy, not only going out and photographing and doing the podcast and just filming when I can, but doing the Out of Chicago Live. I'm doing the Outsiders Conference the weekend after in Kanab, Utah. So I'll be doing those two things back to back.
Nice.
And then after that, it's kind of just seeing what I can get while I'm there, processing those. The rest of the year, I'll be honest with you, I don't really have a lot of things scheduled. I think the pandemic taught me how to find local places and be able to go there on day trips rather than buy an expensive ticket to go somewhere and photograph for a few days and rent a car and get a hotel room. I really enjoyed going to local places and finding some off the wall locations that are close by me. So for the rest of the year, honestly, that's probably what I'll do.
And you're probably better off to do that too by playing it by ear, because you'll come across little nuggets and then you go, oh, I never even realized that. But if you had an agenda to go on the big trips, you'd forget about the small things, that the little vignettes that are by your feet per se, that the macro items that we'll be able to look at. Yeah,
Exactly.
Absolutely. Have you ever visited the Emerald Isle? Have you ever visited Ireland? And if you have, when did you? And if you haven't, when are you?
I did visit Ireland in 2018.
Oh, okay. Not that long ago.
November, I believe.
Okay.
So I think that the city of Dublin could pave their streets in gold with the amount of parking violations that I've paid to them with my rental car there, because their parking situation makes no sense. My car was booted. It was towed. It was towed to another illegal lot where I had to go rescue it before it got booted again.
Oh, geez.
And then finally, I was able to, where I wanted the rental car. We were staying in an Airbnb in Dublin where we could walk anywhere we wanted to. I wanted the rental car because I wanted to go photograph the Wicklow Mountains and go on some hikes out there, which were beautiful. I had a great day out there hiking and seeing, the Wicklow Mountains, going to a pub and, having a Guinness and like shepherd's pie, like the
Nice.
touristy stuff that you have to do.
Yeah.
So I had a great day doing it. However, I was out a few $100s because of my parking violations. So I have fond memories of Ireland, but I'm sure they have reaped the rewards in my violations as well.
Well, look, okay, first advice anyway to you, right? Next time you come to Ireland, you're going to fly into Dublin, get in the car and go west and go to the coast.
Okay.
Because you don't have these parking guys, you don't have these clampers, you don't have these draconian areas where you can park between 7 a.m. and 7:30 a.m. and outside of that you'll get a ticket. So, yeah,
Yes.
next time you come, let me know, meet up with you, I'll bring you to the west coast and I'll show you some incredible scenery where you won't get clamped, you'll be able to park the car wherever you want. Heck, you can even sleep in the car if you wanted to. There'll be nobody to give out to you. You'll be perfectly fine.
It's music to my ears.
Yeah, happy days. I mean, Guinness is something which is a staple diet in Ireland anyway. It's not just a tourist thing, so it is.
In the United States, it's terrible. It tastes awful.
Oh, it's horrible.
But in Ireland, it's incredible.
Well, side note there, Guinness is a product which is made in Dublin. It's made from water from the Liffey, and it doesn't travel well. So when they send it out of Dublin to the pubs around Ireland, it travels by rail for the most of the journey because it just gets shook and shook and shook. But anywhere it's made outside of the water, the special ingredient of the water from Ireland, then it won't taste the same. And people don't know how to pour it as well outside of Ireland either, because it's just a bump, dump. There's your Guinness, not Guinness, Guinness. David, it's been a pleasure. I've really, really enjoyed talking to you. Where can people find more information about you?
Yeah, you can go to my website, davidjohnstonart.com. You can find me on Instagram, David Johnston Photo. All my socials are linked on my website, so that's probably the best place to go. That's where links to YouTube and my podcast are housed as well on there as too. And you can find all the podcast write-ups and episodes that you can listen to on there, or you can download it on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts.
Brilliant. I must say you do a much better job than me of giving the images and the actual show notes on the 77 episodes that are out there, because for me, I kind of look at it and go, okay, I try and write a few words in it, but you go really, really into detail. So hats off for that one. I think it's really, really good.
Thank you.
So yeah,
it's my least favorite part.
Well, yeah, mine too. That's why I don't do it. I enjoy talking to the people and then editing it afterwards. Yeah, so that from that point. But look, I've really, really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you very much for giving us an insight into your photography journey. I hope you enjoyed being on the other side of the table, let's just say now, with me asking you the questions from this one.
I did, but I will get payback when I have you on my show.
Okay, payback, that sounds ominous. All right, I better get ready. I better wear my American football pads and I'll be ready for it. For when you ask me those questions, I'll be fine. David, thanks a million, man. Have a very, very good rest of your day. And from me in Ireland to you in Tennessee, as we say in Ireland here, Slán go fóill.
Thanks, sir.
Hey guys, if you dig what you're hearing, why don't you jump over to iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Give us a 5-star rating and don't forget to share with your friends. With all that done, we'll see you next week, and remember, keep shooting.